What's going on YouTube? This is Mr. Kleinreef here, and I have a very long awaited video for you guys today. I frequently get asked what equipment I use on my systems, and this is the video where I finally go in depth with each piece of hardware. I'll go over what the product is, my recommendation rating on a scale of 1 to 10, and why I chose it, and whether or not I would use an alternative product. The first piece of equipment is the tank itself. Now the tank is the DSA Neo 65 Pro, and after wanting to upgrade to the 29 gallon, I wanted to go rimless. So I searched for standard made tanks around 40 to 60 gallons. I stumbled across this tank on some random website. Although the glass isn't Starfire and there is only one drain, I love this tank. The dimensions are perfect. I love the 20-inch depth and height. It provides me an awesome area to aquascape. The only negative is that the huge black box is directly in the middle of the tank. If I could restart the tank from scratch, I would design the aquascape to hide the box entirely. But overall, I rate this tank an 8 out of 10. If I ever could replace it with any tank I wanted, it would be the exact same size tank with Starfire glass and a ghost overflow from Reef Savvy, instead of a huge big black overflow. The returns would be drilled through the back, and the back of the glass would be painted black. If I only had the option to replace it with a similarly sized standard tank, I wouldn't replace it at all. Probably the most important piece of equipment is my ATI Sun Power. Over my 65 gallon, I have a 6 bulb model, each bulb running at 39 watts. I would highly recommend this product to anyone. It's a solid 10 out of 10. With all the new LED technology on the market, it's hard to not go that route, especially with the low cost on some of the models. However, I do believe that T5 is still ahead of LED. Although this may change in the future, as of right now, the spectrum available from T5 bulbs can easily create a custom and full spectrum light source for your reef. Since T5 is also not point source lighting like LED and metal halides, the bulbs can efficiently cover corals in light, whereas LED and halides can create shadows underneath rocks and branches. There is a slight shadow with T5, but the effect is much less. At this time, I would not set up a reef without using T5 as a main source of spectral coverage. I've considered using an LED T5 hybrid fixture, but I will never fully replace T5 with LED or halide. With the multiple combinations you can create with choosing different bulbs, you can tweak the look of your tank while providing an adequate spectral coverage. That being said, if I keep the pure T5 route on all future tanks, I will also stick with the ATI brand. Their bulbs are unsurpassed and their fixtures are very sleek and modern. Next up is the in-tank circulations. I may get some flack for this, but I love Vortex. Although they can't direct their stream and sometimes tend to run a little loud, these pumps have a very clean look and simple to use interface and can move some serious water without creating jet streams. If these pumps are well taken care of, they can last for years. I've had one of the MP10s for almost 3 years and hasn't gotten any louder. That is due to the maintenance I do on the pumps. I clean them often and I use the security straps to avoid falling damage. However, on a scale of 1 to 10, whether or not I would recommend the product is probably around a 6. There are other great options, including TUNZE and the new Jabos, which I have no experience with. I've considered switching, but I just can't. The look given with no cords in the tank is unsurpassed by any other company, and if I had to replace them with an alternative product, I would choose the TUNZE. They are also controllable via Apex and are very powerful for their size. Next up is the SUMP. The SUMP I use on my 65 gallon system is an Ecosystems Pro Series Model 3012 SUMP. I must admit that the SUMP is smaller than I would have liked, but other than that the construction is flawless. In 3 years the SUMP has never bowed, cracked, or split. It is made of thicker acrylic and is very well designed. I rate the SUMP a solid 8 out of 10. It does what I need it to do, but doesn't allow me to expand very much. If I were to replace it, I would choose a Berlin style SUMP like I had in my past frag tank to allow more room for reactors and other equipment. If I had to pick a brand or manufacturer, that would be a toss-up between Prima Reef Acrylics due to his awesome custom work and Royal Exclusive Systems due to their clean and beautiful work, but those are really pricey. Next up is the TUNZE OSMOLATOR 3155. There are many different ways to top off fresh water into your reef, and due to the mass recommendations and product production by a reputable company, I decided on the full TUNZE OSMOLATOR. Since installing this product, I don't have to worry about salinity shifts, and the controller sensor is accurate and very responsive, and the only thing I have to worry about is topping off the reservoir once a week. I rate this product a 9 out of 10 purely because I had some trouble with the sensor setup and had to restart the controller multiple times. It doesn't happen often, but when I have a pump run dry, I had a pump run dry for some reason because the sensor stopped working and the water level dropped too far. If I had to replace it with another product, I would choose the ELOS model since I have yet to hear a bad review of that one as well. Probably the most crucial part of my reef is the Apex Aquarium controller manufactured by Neptune Systems. With the new Fusion release, the interface to control aspect of your reef has become much easier, with functions such as dosing, feeding, pump, lighting control, power loss updates, real-time temperature, pH, ORP, and salinity monitoring, and so much more. The system is by far the most dominating controller on the market. Since the controller keeps all the information stored online under your unique username and product serial number, the data can be saved if your Apex ever crashes. Having the controller online also aids in the effectiveness of their web-designed app. It doesn't need to be updated in the App Store or anything, since the control is done on an actual web page that has been modified for mobile devices. I rate this an 11 out of 10. And I may be cheating, but the system is by far my favorite piece of equipment on my reef, and I will never start another tank without having one control it. However, there are other controllers on the market, such as the GHL Prophylax, Vertex Cerebra, Digital Aquatics Reefkeeper, and many others that can do the job just as well. What makes the Apex stand apart is the amazing customer service. The company listens to what the reef-keeping community wants and adjusts the system accordingly. They frequently release hardware and software updates, which keeps the product running smoothly, as well as additional modules to expand the scope of what this controller can actually do. Also, the Apex forums provide a mass index of information that can help with every aspect of the controller. I've had the system for a year and I still feel like I'm not using it to its full potential. But if I did have to replace it with another controller, it would be the Vertex Cerebra. Although it hasn't been released, I've heard great things, and their product line in general is top-notch. Next up is the GHL Standalone Doser. This piece of equipment is the heart and soul of my reef chemistry. There are many ways to dose a reef to keep calcium, carbonate, and magnesium in line, but my personal favorite after research is a doser unit. The GHL Standalone is completely separate from the Apex system, but there are options to combine dosing pumps for the Apex to use. And the Neptune system just released their 2-pump dosing module that is easily integrated with the Apex. But back to the GHL. I love this thing. I did a full walkthrough on how it works and its functions, but I'll sum up the features now. The interface is really easy to use, the pumps dose accurate amounts, and they can be calibrated for height, and the unit itself is sturdy yet light. I rate this product a 10 out of 10. I like this unit so much that I bought another for my frag tank, which is now in storage waiting for my next build. Since there are so many different ways to dose a reef, such as hand dosing, calcium reactors, dosing, a dosing pump, kalkwasser, and etc., I could easily see myself switching depending on tank demands. But if I had to replace the GHL with something in the same class of product, I would switch to the Vertex Libra. For a while I went back and forth between the two dosers, but ultimately chose the GHL due to forum responses. Instead of going the cheap route with some glass jars or plastic jars, I decided to store my dosing solutions in vessels made by Vertex. These vessels are clean and the color scheme is eye-catching. The tubing is easy to insert into the John Guest fittings and creates an airtight seal. However, if the tubing isn't cut perfectly straight, the risk of air bubbles is likely. But I would still rate the vessels at a 10 out of 10. Although they are pricey for what they do, they are a crucial part of the reef that I would like to showcase rather than hide underneath a cabinet. After looking online at other dosing containers, I wouldn't replace them with anything else. The sturdy construction is what sets them apart from every other plastic container out there. The ASM G1 skimmer that filters this reef came with my ecosystem sumps. It's rather loud, but it can skim out some nasty skimming. For that reason, I give the skimmer a 9 out of 10. It's easy to clean and adjust, which is a huge bonus in this hobby. If I had to replace it, it would be with one of Vertex's sexy alpha skimmers. I'm a huge Vertex fan and will likely make the switch to a Vertex in the near future. I could also see myself using a Reef Dynamics skimmer. Similar construction to the ASM skimmers, the Reef Dynamics system's INS 80 is what filtered my frag tank, was dead silent and very efficient. One of the more minor components of my reef keeping setup is the DJ bar that I use. I use everything that I want to turn off and on an instant or doesn't require control by the Apex to be run through this board. I have researched that some of them can blow out, but that's if you go above the amperage, which isn't likely if you actually pay attention to what you're plugging into it. I would rate this at a solid 8 out of 10 purely because it's a very simple thing. It's a power strip with a switch and you can turn things on and off. It's very hard to mess them up. The only bad thing is that they're formatted in a weird way, so they're hard to mount in places and you really have to plan around where you put it. But other than that, this product is amazing. The only thing I would really replace this DJ strip is with another Apex Energy Bar 8 is the only thing I would replace it with. But if I had to replace it with something in its class, then I probably wouldn't replace it with anything else at all. Highly recommend these. Last up is my heaters. I use two EHEIM JAGER 150 watt heaters in my 65 gallon tank. They are powerful, reliable heaters that I have yet to have fail on me in 3 years. I highly recommend them. I give them a solid 10 out of 10. The only bad thing is that they are glass, and if you knock them a little too rough, they can shatter. I've only read about a couple of them failing ever, so you don't really have to worry about it. They can also be calibrated, which is cool, and adjusted accordingly like that. So if I had to replace them with anything else, it would probably be Fluval's electronic heaters are the only thing I would ever replace it with. But other than that, yeah, these heaters are amazing. They're time tested and proven to be reliable and consistent and awesome. So that's why I chose those. And yeah. Well, there you have it. A complete list and reason of why I chose the equipment I did. If you have any questions regarding the information in the video, feel free to leave a question in the comment section below. If I have a lot of questions, I may make a video that answers all of them. If you enjoyed the video, please show your support by clicking that little green thumbs up. If you didn't, please leave a response down below so I can make a better video in the future. If you're interested in seeing more, don't forget to follow along by subscribing. Thank you for everyone for the support these last 3.5 years. Until next time, enjoy your reef, guys.